Good Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com Mailbag Podcast. Glad to have you along with us on this Thursday. Wishing everybody a great holiday weekend coming up. And we certainly thank you for tuning in. If you're watching us on YouTube or if you're checking us out on all the various platforms, we certainly appreciate it and hope that you will check out Volquest.com for much more on all things Tennessee as we talk about it on the General's Quarters and give you updates on all sports going on right now. Lots of things happening, big picture-wise. Lots of things going on with individual sports as well. Of course, it's a big recruiting weekend coming up with 865 Live. Lots of things happening, and we're going to dive into it with your questions this morning. I'm Brent Hubbs along with Rob Lewis and Austin Price. Guys, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
DavyVol. All right, DavyVol, your thoughts on the SEC and the Big Ten trying to make the playoff an SEC Big Ten invitational. Do you think that's good for the playoffs, and do you think it's good for the sport? Your thoughts about 4 automatic qualifiers potentially in those two leagues?
I think it makes sense. I mean, I think you're going to see that more years than not, especially for the SEC. Now, again, I think the Big Ten has caught up in a lot of regards, especially the top end schools. Now, they're not as, they're weaker at the bottom than the SEC is, but I think it does make sense. And until the ACC and Big 12 prove it, Rob, it's hard to say that they should have more than, just a fractional say.
I 100% agree. I mean, I'm a hardcore football snob when it comes to the SEC, and begrudgingly, evidence will acknowledge that the Big Ten is, like you say, AP, the top. I think is, I wouldn't have thought this a few years ago, but I think the top 3 or 4 schools in the Big Ten, from what we've seen, in this new era, are going to be competitive with the top of the SEC. But I 100% agree. I mean, I think you're going to have, some teams pop up every once in a while, but I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC are running this thing. And I will be surprised if they do not get their way.
Well, here's the other question I have as a follow-up to that kind of bigger picture looking forward. If you're the ACC, the Big 12, other schools, are you more bothered by the fact that they would get 4 automatic qualifiers? Or are you more bothered by the fact that you think this is another step forward towards a breakaway for the haves and then the have-nots in terms of separation with football breaking away from the NCAA at some point? Do you think that this is another potential step in that direction if you go that way? Too much of a reach?
Maybe, but I hope so. I mean, I hope you're right.
I mean, it certainly feels like you're moving more and more in that direction to me. I mean, with all the talk of collective bargaining and everything else, it just feels like football and the NCAA are going to have a hard time, doing things together. So we'll see.
And the money's too big. The money is too big.
It's a business. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, it is a big time business now, Austin. It's not. We can talk about amateurism. All that stuff's out the window. I mean, when 16-year-olds have agents and you're negotiating contracts every year, and schools are running, $280 million, $300 million budgets, and I know all of that's not football, but the bulk of it is. We're in a whole different stratosphere business-wise than you were 15 years ago. It's just not even remotely the same.
Yeah, the business model's, morphed dramatically, right? And, for Tennessee, I would expect that there'll be a football breakaway right about the time the Jeremy Pruitt penalties will be expiring. That means you'll have had to set through all these. I mean, Tennessee's got all these weeks where they can't call recruits and they have to sit here and do this all the time. I mean, it happens all the time. Like, hey, what's the well, we're not going to call recruits this week, or we're off the road already for spring because we had, our dates already used because, while the other schools are out there for another full week, recruit. I mean, like that'll be about the time that the breakaway happens. But, I do think we're inevitably headed there.
Yeah. All right. Athrun's got his list of questions. So let's hit his starter, appetizer, salad, main course, and his dessert as well here. What do y'all think of the ZZ documentary that Tennessee put on YouTube? I thought it was great. I'll say this for the documentary. I thought it was good. And I know a lot of those young kids that worked on that and put that together. That's 2 nice things that the students, it's great to see the students at the University of Tennessee doing those types of long form things. What a great experience for them. And obviously Zakai's story, Rob, is Zakai's story. A lot of people know it, but it's never, you can never hear it too many times when you consider in this day and age, he's a unicorn in a lot of ways because of where he came from and how he came out of nowhere and was here for, and had the career that he had at Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, just a super unique individual in a lot of ways. I mean, first off, there's that weird kind of New York City, Tennessee basketball connection that started Bernard King. And, it's not, I mean, it's, Zakai part of that. Tobias Harris was part of that. So that's, that was a little bit of the element of him. But then, just his size and the fire that he played with, I mean, super unique. I mean, you see a lot of smaller point guards. You don't see a lot of smaller point guards with his attitude, with his ego, and I don't say ego in a bad way. I mean, his belief in himself, and tore his ACL in his sophomore year, came back better than ever. I mean, at his size, I mean, won the defensive player of the year in the SEC. I mean, he's just, we'll never see another guy like Zakai. I mean, I don't think Zakai was the best basketball player by any stretch I've seen at Tennessee, but man, he might be the most unique. I mean, seriously, I mean, he is one of one. I mean, like you say, Hubbard, unicorn is really good. I mean, just his attitude, the passion, the bond that he had with his teammates, with Coach Barnes. I mean, I've said it 14 times, unique. I mean, he is really a unique guy.
All right, Hubbard, I'm going to take these next three on my own since they're all recruiting related.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you believe the 865 Live with any commits or more likely to come back for official visits? I think they're most likely coming back for official visits. Could one of the in-state prospects pull the trigger this weekend if they get to feeling good about it? Maybe. We'll see. Do you think Anderson or Bacon will end up back in this class? History of recruiting nationwide says no, since they have already been committed once. I agree with that. I think it's impressive that Tennessee's still in play, so you can't discount it. But at the same time, he's right. History says no. And what class of 25 football commits is Tennessee still waiting to get to campus? Joakim Dodson and Charles House. Joakim Dodson is on campus this weekend as he will arrive, and I think Charles House shortly thereafter will get to campus. But it was just two. That's the world we live in now, Brent. It's not. It used to be like 25 or 15%. Then it became 50. Now it's like 93%. Kids get here and go through spring practice.
Yeah, it's an upset if you're not here. By the way, you did a good job with that. You want to continue, or do you want me to go back and take around? You read better than I do.
I'll tell you what, we'll just continue on. Vol by Grace says, what are your thoughts on the loyalty oath that the Power 4 conferences are trying to
stumble one. Here we go.
Measurement to the House settlement. Does anyone think the House settlement is even going to survive to be enforced? I say yes, but I think there's going to have to be tweaks.
I think it's fascinating where the momentum is, Rob, with the House settlement. This has been basically 2 years in the making here of trying to get this done. We know the NCAA is pushed this. This case started as a retro to take care of former players from an NIL standpoint, and they did what all good lawmakers do. They threw a bunch of other things in it to try to entice it when you talk about rev share and then maybe the potential for 5 years of eligibility and all this other stuff. I think, Rob, what's fascinating with it is the number of people that are coming out now and questioning it. You had the U.S. Olympic Diving Association come out and talk about how it's not right. And, Livy Dunn's come out and testified in Congress to say it's none of their business, to know how much money I make. And I mean, there's been some growing opposition to it. It certainly doesn't have the feeling that this is any kind of fix. And Danny White certainly indicated that on the Caravan as well, Rob.
No, I don't think that's any kind of fix. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, it's such a huge, complicated issue, but I don't think the fix is coming from what's being discussed in the House right now. And you're right. It's funny to think this. I mean, it all kind of started as Ed O'Bannon wanted to get paid for a video game, 25 years ago, and it's morphed into this. But I mean, I could be way wrong. I think trying to cap it and the Livy Dunn stuff. I don't think any state or university is going to tell a kid that they can't, this is all you can profit, and then you got to tell everybody else no.
There lies the problem.
That's it. I mean, I don't want to talk politics, but that is anti-American to the core. This is no matter what anybody says, no matter what somebody tells you you're worth, this is actually all you're worth. And that's a non-starter, I think, at the end.
Yeah, because I think you'll go get what we brought up a few weeks ago. Got to get to collective bargaining and all that. And Brent brings up a good point. NIL is not going away because in the NFL they have salaries, right? But then yet there's still somebody on a Papa John's commercial or something like. Now, can you get to the point where you can enforce the fake stuff? I do think that that's more reasonable I do think that, it still would be difficult, but I think it's more reasonable to think you can get to the point of hammering someone for fake NIL stuff.
I think it's going to be hard without a union and without some representatives, because I think each individual athlete's going to sue and say, hey, somebody's willing to pay me this. I mean, I'm going to take this. I mean, like we don't have a union. We don't have anybody that has any governance for us. So, I mean, why are you in a position to tell me I can't take money from somebody? I think that's the hard part. I think that's why you're going to see so many offshoots of litigation and court cases with this stuff, when that controlling arm steps in and tries to say, hey, we're going to negate 80% of the deals. Somebody's going to court over that. You start taking money out of people's pockets, somebody's going to fight for the money. And so I think it's going to be really hard to enforce. And I'm going to be fascinated to see what happens with it in the coming weeks, and sort of what the discussion is about it at SEC spring meetings next week. All right, Bud Fox, I'll jump back in here. By the time their UT careers are done, which pair of linebackers do you think will be a better duo? Arian Carter and Jeremiah Thielander, or Jeremy Banks and Aaron Beasley? I found this to be a pretty fascinating question.
I don't disagree. I was sitting there reading it too as before you fired me from reading questions. I mean, you'd like to say Carter and Thielander because they have more room to build, right? Now, here's the thing. Banks was gone, so Beasley had that year without him. Carter and Thielander came in together. They're going to play together throughout. Now, in theory, Arian could technically, if he had a really good year, go pro after this year, and Thielander would still be here in theory, right? If everybody stays and all that stuff. I would still lean Arian Carter and Thielander, but I mean, I think the peak for Banks and Beasley was pretty good.
I would go with AP, and I would add that Aaron Beasley probably surprised me as much as any guy that's been through here in the last 10 years for what he turned into. I mean, turned into a really productive player, and was just, couldn't find a home for 2 or 3 years. Aaron Beasley's shout out. I would have never guessed that he would have been a high level SEC linebacker after his second year when he bounced between running back and free safety.
Yeah, I think the Banks thing is fascinating because there's and I get why there's a stigma there, right? Because it was one of those deals where, he went to practice every day. Is he going to be there? Is he not going to be there? Right? I mean, but when he was locked in and when he was dialed in to play, man, he was a good football player. Now, I mean, he had some limitations in what you ask him to do, but he was a really effective football player. I think the stability and the upside with Arian Carter probably supersedes that other duo, but I think that duo probably doesn't get the recognition they deserve, in large part because of the volatility that everybody had with Jeremy Banks when he played at Tennessee, because he made, he probably got noted for more things that he didn't do than he did do in terms of production on the field. In 2024, the Vols finished 15th nationally in yards per game on offense. This surprised me a little bit when I looked it up. Do you think the narrative that SEC defensive coordinators have caught up to our scheme may be a little overblown? 15th nationally on offense wasn't too shabby for a team with a quarterback who clearly had limitations. Rob, AP, whoever?
I was going to say, I just don't. I mean, I do think that it's a bit overblown because, everybody is comparing it to 2022 when people were running wide open with routes on air, and you had, Jalen Hyatt kind of like hunched down over there behind the left tackle, and then he'd swing out there and be like wide open. Like, they've not done that, or they've not been able to do that. And so thus it's looked different, but they've still put up a ton of yards, points and everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I think the notion, Rob, is that everybody wants to go back to 22. And everything is based off 22, much the same way Chaz Lanier, everybody was comparing him to Dalton Connect. The next point guard at Tennessee, everybody's going to compare to Zakai Ziegler and how they play. I mean, I think it's natural that you base it on whatever your most recent history is. And it just happens that in 22, we may never see an offense that explosive again at Tennessee.
I concur. I mean, it broke every school record out there. So, I mean, just when they don't go get back to that level immediately, it doesn't, to me, that doesn't equate into the SEC coordinators have already, defense coordinators have caught up to them. I mean, because that was historic. I mean, they put 52 on Bama. or just I don't know that we'll see an offense that good again. I agree with you. So
here's the other thing
it
too.
felt like they dropped off, but they did drop off in the best offense in school history.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, Austin, you go back and look at last year, there were more people open than we probably want to give them credit for, particularly on some bigger shot plays that they just didn't. Either the receiver dropped the ball, they overthrew it. I mean, there were more. The idea that Tennessee could never get open on vertical plays is a bit overblown. I think when you go back and watch, there were guys open, they just didn't connect like they did in 22.
Well, and that goes to Joe's time too, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Joe and Nico's year, like they had guys open, and both guys overthrew or missed. There were times where in Joe's year where they dropped the football, on deep balls, Ramel Keaton. And so, I mean, I just think like this is like, I love analogies. So like this is like going out and shooting 62 and the next day you shoot 67 and you're like, 67 is still really good. It's just not 62. I mean, like,
AP, can we use 87 and 82?
Sure.
Can I go 107 and 120 AP?
Yeah, sure. Whatever. The point is like, if you go out and look at the baseball team this year. How many games they won, Hubs? Like 41, 42, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, go back 15 years ago. Tennessee winning 40 games in baseball would be like me eating a vegetable. So, I mean, like, that just doesn't happen. So, I mean, like, my point is like, it's all relative. You're comparing it against greatness or the best, right? Yeah. And it's just not fair.
Yeah. And I mean, again, how many times in whatever sport is this guy going to be the next? He's the next this. He's the next that. And most of the time they never live up to whatever Hall of Fame billing they're given, when they get started there. All right, let's go to VB. Thoughts on Jon Gruden becoming an offensive analyst for the year? I'll hang up and listen. Obviously, that's a joke. I did enjoy the video that he put out of him putting on all of his stuff. I've said this on a couple of different platforms. I think I have to put it out on Twitter. For as much anger as that guy gave me, and as much angst and as much sleepless nights as that guy gave me for two different coaches searches, he's a great storyteller, and he's actually kind of entertaining now that everybody realizes he's never going to be the coach at Tennessee. So, but he caused a lot of. I didn't like him for a long period of time, but I'm much more on board with Jon Gruden right now because I find him entertaining.
That is until the next coaching search, and then all of those videos will get dredged back up where he's like, Reggie White, Peyton Manning. I mean, he was naming everybody.
He was rattling everybody off. That's for sure.
I think that's the most entertaining thing about it is he was naming players. Like, it's easy to name Eric Berry and Al Wilson and those guys. He was naming a ton of players.
Well, he threw out a I think a Tim McGee reference, and he threw out
Anthony
Miller reference, who's first JUCO receiver, I think, and he had a Dale Carter reference in there, and I mean, he went back to his time, and it was 7 minutes of fun. If you haven't seen it, it's out there on Twitter. He's an interesting follow on Twitter for sure. All right, UTChampions wants to go rapid fire here. Over under. Are we ready, Rob? I'm gonna let you go first. You ready, Rob? All right.
Ready.
Over under on baseball postseason wins, including SEC tournament. Ooh. 4.5.
Man, I'll go over.
All
since
right.
There's no money involved.
Football true road wins 2.5.
Man, what where are we at, Howard? We're at the swamp.
Yeah.
Basically, you're going to win either at Florida or at Alabama to get over.
You got to win one of those two.
I think they're going to win. I'm the anti-Hubbard. I think they're going to win in Florida. I'm not really even sweating it. Over.
Good, great day in the morning. All right, AP.
Billy.
All right, AP to you. Baseball postseason wins. Rob's forgotten every Hail Mary that's been thrown against the Vols in Florida for the last 20 years. Baseball postseason wins, including SEC, 4.5.
I'll go over.
Football true road wins 2.5.
I'm going to go over. I don't like them to win at Florida, but I like them to win at Alabama. Ooh. And I've said that for a month or two.
Wow.
So, again, I'm feeling froggy. And then the AP bonus special, the Vol golf team makes it to the round 4, which means they make the top 15. The head coach thinks they're going to make it to the top 15. So I'm going to ride Brendan Webb's confidence.
Really? Brendan Webb believing in this team down the stretch. I mean, fired up about where his
He's
golf
feeling
team.
froggy. And listen, Lance Simpson's got to continue what he's done. And here's the other thing: if they could ever put a tournament or even a round together where they have all 5, players in play, then they have a real shot. They just brought the tournaments they played well this year. They have brother-in-lawed it to death, right? Like when Lance Simpson has a down day, the other 4 step up, or vice versa. Like they've never had like that one moment. Like when Oklahoma won their regional, I was looking at it and I'm like, daggone, Oklahoma's culling a 1 under. Like Tennessee's worst score that day was like 6 over. Like they just luckily had 4 other really good scores. So I mean, if Tennessee could ever have that day where everybody's kind of on, then watch out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Ace, I am for Tennessee. This may have been addressed previously, but does Tennessee and Carson Sneed seem to be trending in different directions, AP?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you think when you've got media outlets writing about his brother's comment on Instagram, I'd say that's not going to end real well with Vol fans jumping in there and ripping the brother, which probably doesn't end real well with Carson. So, I mean, it's recruiting. You never say never, but I thought it was trending away. Then here lately, I thought it was trending back okay. And then the Dayton Sneed stuff happened, and that's where it gets iffy for me, because I think when fans feel upset about being slighted by a former player, what are the reactions on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and then subsequently, how does the family take said response?
Well, will Sneed be here this weekend for 865 Live?
Supposed to be here.
That'll be interesting. Be interesting to see. I think you're exactly right in terms of kind of what's the.
Dayton didn't hammer the football team. He just said the baseball team.
Yeah,
so
but we know Vol Twitter went right back at him, right? And so how does the family feel about that? And does that have any kind of impact? We'll see if Carson Sneed makes it to town this weekend for the event. VolFanMailMan. What former Vol comes to mind when you think of players who had solid careers at UT, played in the NFL, but rarely get mentioned today? Scott Galyon is one for me. Where is Eric Kane for this question when I need this question? I mean, we need Eric Kane to address appreciated Vols through the history of the annuals, Rob Lewis.
I love this question. This might be my favorite one of the day. I've got a bunch, but maybe my all-timer, Morgan Cox.
Morgan Cox.
I bet a lot of fans don't even know. Long snapper at Tennessee. How long did he play? 10 years in the league?
He's still playing.
I mean, I think he's got a Super Bowl ring, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, with the Ravens, and he's snapping in Nashville with the Titans now.
I mean, played forever. I mean, but that's a great. David Martin was a guy that had virtually did nothing at Tennessee in the 90s and had a long NFL career. And there was some defense. Abreu Franklin.
Abreu Franklin's a great pull. That's a great
Demetran Veal. There's a good pull for you.
Yeah, there's another one. Played for the Broncos.
Daniel McCullers.
Big Daniel McCullers.
Big Daniel McCullers. Good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Scott Galyon was a really good player. Scott Galyon was I think probably, if you're old enough, you probably appreciate him more than some of the younger guys do. I mean, he was a good player when he was here. I think he was recognized pretty well while he was here. But I mean, think about this. And I love him. He's my guy, and I'm going to work with him every Saturday. But did anybody say Ramon Foster was a star when he was at Tennessee?
Well, I was going to say him, but when you look at the question, it says, but barely gets mentioned today. Ramon gets mentioned all the time because
that's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, but not for his playing career. They talked about him already.
I've got one. Played Quill Hollow with him last September. He was one of my favorite players when I was in college. Omar Gaither.
That's a good one. Real good one.
Yeah,
good player.
I played at his time, but then played in the league for 7 or 8 years with the Eagles.
He had a good career. I mean, you got a couple of guys now that are playing. I mean, I think Theo Jackson was a guy who had 1 year here.
Great.
I don't think anybody saw him to be what he's done in the NFL right now.
Luke Stocker.
Luke Stocker's another guy who was he was a blocking guy here and a blocking guy in the NFL, but he made it work for a long period of time. I think it's easier for probably offensive linemen to kind of fall into this category and be under the radar. But Austin, what did a lot of people think about Josh Palmer's career at Tennessee?
Yeah, it was solid.
Right. And he's rolling through. He was not like Captain Popular, like, or superstar, and he's gone and done well in the National Football League as well.
Yep,
so there's a good number of those guys.
Even a guy like Micah Abernathy.
Yeah. The fact Micah, who had Micah Abernathy making?
I never imagined.
Nope. Yeah, I didn't think he'd make a roster. Justin Coleman was a guy who took tons of criticism here, and he played 8 years in the NFL.
Let's go. Rose Cooper ran by him that night at South Carolina for 1 million receiving yards.
He did. It wasn't just him. That secondary had a really bad night that night for sure. RWDYvawl, how is the communication with the Westview kids, Simpson and is it Asa?
Yeah, Asa Barnes. Tennessee's not offered either yet. They were by there to see him this spring. Asa Barnes has got offers from Ohio State and Alabama and Florida State and Florida and other big-time programs. Tennessee's just not went there yet. And then Graham Simpson. Do I think Tennessee will offer Graham Simpson? I do, but they have not to this point. We'll see if they pull the trigger this summer. And that, which would be in line heading into his sophomore year at the same time that Faison got offered.
Yeah, that's true. Second time Faison camped is when he got the offer, right, AP?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Vols 11. Anyone have an injury update at all on Jordan Thomas or if he's playing this season? AP, I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah, I think he's most likely will retire from football. He just had some significant damage when he had the knee injury.
Volken, did the spring help you guys to identify any guys who are in the 2024 signing class that you can see as a future high-level starter who we didn't see any or much of on the field thus far other than Mike Matthews?
Yeah, Jesse Perry. I'm going to continue to beat that drum. I got too many people over there that sing his praises. Is he going to start this fall? I don't know. We'll see how fall camp goes, but I think he is Dane Davis in terms of it. This is not a slight on Dane, and it's not meant to compare them to as players, but like how Dane was the swing man, right? Like he played guard, he played center, he played tackle, and he was just kind of always played, right? I think that's who Jesse Perry is. I think Jesse Perry will be bouncing in at tackle when guys come out. I think if they need him at guard, he'll bounce in at guard. To me, he's kind of like best available, and offers a ton of versatility.
Yeah, I think he is a terrific story in the sense of what high school system he came out of, and that's what they had to do to win. Okay, so I'm not knocking the system he played in, but the transition he has made from that basically single wing offense to being a pass protector that you think you can line up and he can be at worst case your sixth man at multiple spots. It says a ton about his growth and development as a player. It says a ton about Tennessee's evaluation of him, seeing it when not a lot of other people would see it. I think there's a bunch of guys in this class, Rob, that's going to be pretty fascinating to see their impact and how much they're going to be able to help this team, whether it's this year or next year. I'm sitting here looking at this. I think we all are curious to see what Farouk could do. He could be a starter this fall for Tennessee at safety. Edwin Spillman, I think we all think is going to be a really good player at linebacker. Caleb Beasley may beat out Farouk for the starting safety spot. That's going to be pretty fascinating to watch. Who else?
Jordan Ross. What's he going to turn into?
Jordan Ross can be a factor there if he can stay healthy. And Staley's another one I've kind of been bullish on. And I don't think we've seen a lot of him. I would not put Peyton Lewis in this category because we saw enough of him last year, I think. But basically, Staley played one meaningful game, and that was in the Ohio State game. And I think he's going to be able to help this team. I think he's going to be a real factor for them in the wide receiver spot as well. This class has to hit. I'm not saying they got to hit 100% AP, but if this program is going to stay on the trajectory they've been on and be in those conversations, this 24 class, some people have to take a real step in year 2 in this moving forward for their build.
Satterwhite. You mentioned Satterwhite.
Yeah.
Especially when you factor in they did not go heavy to the portal. Like when you don't go heavy to the portal, then you better have some serious, either some serious hits in your true freshman class or your sophomore /redshirt freshman class. which means Tennessee's going to have to lean on some of those young guys that maybe didn't play a whole lot last year or are just now getting to campus to be factors this season.
Yeah,
don't you guys think this is happening like as the portal process gets more mature, that maybe you are going to start leaning? I think that you got to trust your evaluations eventually of your high school guys, or you're just going to go, you're going to have huge roster churn. And I think it's really hard for coaches when it first started to not want the older guy immediately that could come in and help. And when they're comparing him to the 18-year-old kid. But I think that in talking to coaches, I know that a phrase that I hear a lot is eventually we got to trust our evaluations. We can't live in the portal. I mean, we like this guy and offered him for a reason, and we got to develop him.
Well, I think the biggest thing too, Rob, is like you have to make a decision here. And I think where you're going to see is maybe schools, Tennessee included, decide to go in on the guys that they think are instant impact, can't miss prospects. And then otherwise, they're going to go take some more developmental guys that won't cost as much. If you've got a guy who you think is going to be good, but probably, and you think he could actually be really great, but he's probably a year or two away, the rankings for some kids suggest that they're going to be great right away versus the reality of things. So if you put a bunch of money into a kid out of high school and he's just sitting the bench and learning, then you're just burning through cash. So I think you go either like top end heavy or kind of down here, like where you're trying to, maybe get some value deals to develop.
Dude, you're 100% seeing that in basketball right now in a very defined way. And I think you're going to start to see it in football, but it's just harder because those instant impact guys they're not there as freshmen. They're just not big enough. But I mean, look at Tennessee, hardcore Nate Ament, and then three or four guys that you really don't know much about.
Which leads right into our next question, Rob. It's for you, Brent. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You're taking the lead there.
I was just reading ahead.
Go ahead.
Do you guys know what the staff has as a target playing weight for Nate Ament this winter, Rob?
I don't think they have like a number, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that Rick and Garrett say we want you at 215 to eat another peanut butter sandwich right now. But
I thought it was 17.2.
And I think he's listed at 185, but I'm pretty sure that is probably from last summer before his senior year, like camps where he was measured and all that kind of thing. USA basketball stuff. So I think he's a little closer to 200 than 185 right now. I think they would love for him to be 215, but man, I just don't know if that's going to happen. If you talk to Coach, I mean, he is like every for the first time I've watched the kid, people have tried to body him, they tried to get rough with him, they tried to intimidate him, and he just doesn't fold. I mean, he's ideally, he would be a little bigger. That's going to be an issue some nights, but I mean, he's going to look skinny next year. That's the bottom line. But he's going to make a lot of shots.
He better, yeah. But he is going to look skinny. You're right. Hey, AP. I mean, if Grant is, and he'll watch this podcast because he always does, he's going to be really disappointed that neither one of us made a comment on a name Asa from Martin Westview and didn't bring in the Andy Griffith reference for the night watchman Asa and the bank security guard Asa, who played multiple roles. And then we just had Rob talking about peanut butter sandwiches, and I immediately think of Leon walking through the streets of Mayberry holding his peanut butter sandwich and offering it up to everybody. So, Grant, there you are. There's your two Andy Griffith references in the Mailbag podcast today. All right, to Rabid.
We'll see if we get a response before the end of the podcast. I've just texted Nate Ament and asked him what he's weighing these days.
All right, I like it. Let's go get an answer right now. Seems like Danny White has to be equal parts AD and politician lobbyist. We'll be listening for content surrounding the conference and the legal situation. Do we think UT and the Tennessee State Legislature are prepared for a drawn-out fight for UT to get their way? This is in reference to the state law that's come into effect that basically, as everybody said, is the most user-friendly NIL state now in the country. And you also have the commission who has come in and said, we're going to make all the Power Conference schools sign this sheet that they're going to abide by our rules that says you have to report everything, and it has to go through the controlling arm. And if you don't, then we can kick you out of the conference.
Do they have more power than the Warren Commission had?
I mean, I'm just telling you right now, there's a collision course coming. But what I do believe, I don't think the SEC is kicking anybody out of the league. They're not telling Tennessee to kick rocks. hey, you got to go to Conference USA.
Yeah.
And I think Tennessee,
Sewanee's coming back, baby.
I think Tennessee's making it very clear that where Danny wants to go is collective bargaining, and until you get down that pike, they're going to go do whatever they think they need to do to be as competitive as they can be in all sports, and they're using state law to do that. So, that, I mean, Rob, this is a draw the line in the sand deal. I mean, there's going to be a ton of discussion about this next week. I'm sure the commissioner of the SEC is not happy at all with Tennessee and with the state law that's been put into place. But, I mean, this – as Andy Staples told us, AP, you know, hey, we've got our summer content lined up because this is going to be a public fight starting next week. And it's going to be interesting to see from a PR standpoint how the conference plays it, how Tennessee plays it, and how public they fight about this situation.
Well, and does anybody join Tennessee? And
publicly does anybody
publicly.
join Tennessee?
And then when you throw in the fact that Zakai Ziegler's, you know, fighting for a 5th year, there's all kinds of summertime content. I don't even count recruiting.
Yeah, that's true. But, Rob, it's going to be interesting to see kind of this fight that Tennessee is taking on here with this commission.
And Tennessee fans, I mean, how much do they love their athletic director, or at least his attitude when it comes to stuff like this? Instead of, you know, rightly or wrongly, I think the perception for years were maybe not with Doug Dickey, but, you know, when anytime, you know, there was controversy, Tennessee wanted to make sure they were compliant above anything else. And that ain't Danny White's playbook. He's going to take care of his own, and all the I mean, he's got tons of positive reinforcement over the last 4 years that's exactly what he should be doing. I mean, where have been the consequences for him looking after Tennessee's best interest? I mean, none.
No. And again, I mean, I think that, you know, I think Danny White's made it clear he is a fan of collective bargaining, and that's where he wants it to go. And I think to get there, these types of things are going to be factors, these types of state laws. I think the question is, does Alabama follow suit in their state with a law like this? You know, and because what's funny, AP, is like everybody talks about, well, you got to get the House settlement done so you can get the rev share. They're going to rev share July 1st, whether the House settlement's settled or not, whether that deal's done or not.
Correct.
Like they just worked around that deal. They don't need the House settlement to start paying kids July 1st out of the university.
Correct. Just like Georgia.
I mean, and that's what every state has done. They're just, I mean, while the NCAA spent almost 2 years working on that deal, every school in every state has spent the last 2 years working around those deals, you know, and that's what it's boiled down to. And that's why nobody believes that there's going to be a ton of teeth with the settlement when it's all said and done. So, again, going to be interesting summertime conversation for sure. SPittVol, I honestly thought we may have seen Coach Barnes retire after this past season. He seems locked in, though. Could he have a few more years left in him in Knoxville, Rob Lewis?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I don't know the answer, and I would bet you a bunch of money he doesn't know either. I mean, anytime anybody asks me this question, this is what I've asked him this 1,000 times probably, and his answer is always the same. The day that I'm not excited to go to practice and work with my guys, I will quit that day, whether that's in August or January or, you know, whenever. And dude, I believe that guy. I mean, that's Hubbard, you know him. I can see him December 12th, not feeling it, calling Danny White and saying, I'm done. But I mean, I think he's got 3 years left in him. I don't see any slowdown at all.
Well, I think a couple of things with him. One, I agree with you 100%. Two, I mean, I don't know what his hobby is outside of basketball.
Practical jokes, and who's he going to play him on if he's not in the office every day?
Right. I mean, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't, you know, he's not traveling the world. He doesn't want to go
play 36 a day with his circle of buddies.
Yeah, I mean, he's that's not where he's at. I think the other thing too is, while he likes having stability and likes having 4-year players, there's also a part of him I think kind of likes some roster turnover, Rob. When you can go get a guy who has played and you're not starting from scratch with him, and you've also recruited him for 4 days or for 2 weeks, and that's the investment that you've put into him. I think for coaches, I think Rick Barnes would have been done earlier had it not been for the portal, because I think Rick Barnes was done with watching a kid in the 8th grade and spending every sweaty Saturday weekend or every weekend he could in the summertime in a gym watching a kid play to have that kid come to you at the end and go, Coach, I really like the color blue better, so I'm going to go there. I think that's where older coaches got to the point with like, I mean, I don't want to do this anymore. Now you don't have to do that as much, which changes the landscape.
And I think his style of recruiting works great with older guys and their families who have been through it, have been lied to or been promised all this and this, with this AP. I mean, you talk to these older guys the second time around, they look at recruiting completely different. They don't care about, the what's in the hotel room when they get there or, taking selfies with anybody. I mean, what's the system? How do I fit in? How much am I going to play? And what's the NIL? And man, he is great about stuff like that. I mean, just when it's just like honest talk, everything up front, hard truths. I mean, I can't imagine there's anybody better. And I mean, I think he really loves it. I mean, and Hubbard, this. This is kind of quirky, but he gets bored so easily. I think the transfer portal stuff, plays into his personality that way. His attention span can come and go. So I think he loves being able to tinker, and I think he likes the finances of it. He likes to talk, manage the NIL. I don't see slowdown.
Well,
the question years to pass, to become Tennessee's all-time winningest coach as far as wins. 278 is the record. He's got to he's at 232, so he needs 56 to tie between now. And that's 2 really good years, right? I mean, it's basically averaging.
I mean, I think he really does want to make a Final Four. I mean, I think that matters to him a lot to get back there. But I mean, he's not going to that's not going to be the kind of thing that he keeps chasing that will keep him in the game.
No, I mean, and the retirement question is going to come up all the time, and the reason it's going to come up all the time is exactly what you said off the top, Rob, when answering this question. He could go at any point in time. I mean, he literally could at his age, where he's at and his comfort level he has. When I'm done, I'm done. And he's not going to do a farewell tour. There's not going to be all that kind of stuff. He'll just, whenever he's done, he's just going to be done and he'll walk away from it. And I think that's why part of the reason why those rumors are always going to be out there.
I will say the one caveat to that is, and people talk all the time about he loves his assistant so much, he might pull a Bo Ryan, and retire in August and they have to hire a guy. The one reason I don't think he will do that, and Hubbard, you know this from talking to him, being around him, he has tremendous respect for Dottie Plowman. Tremendous. It would be hard for me to see him putting her in a bind like that with that hire, but that's my 2 cents on that.
SafariVol, can we go back to the discussion on what the root problem is within the offensive performance the last 2 years? I realized Hendon Hooker was really good in this offense, that he was older, more mature than Nico was. But I also think there's a lot more to it than that will likely get more exposed without an experienced quarterback. In other words, in the last 2 years, what happened to the creative play calling, offensive line protection, receivers getting some space, and faster pace offense? Is anyone feeling like we should lower our expectations for the upcoming season? I'm going to start here. I mean, one, if your expectation, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, is 2022, yes, lower your expectation. Okay? Lower your expectation. If you think it's going to be a record-setting offense every year that shatters records, you probably ought to lower your expectations. Creative play calling looks good when you execute better. But yeah, Austin, they have missed some things. I think the one thing where they got to be more creative when you look at Josh Heupel as a head coach through the years is you're going to have to be creative in the red zone. Because I think what teams are going to do is they're going to continue to say, you can run it all you want to run it. Okay? We don't think you're going to run it for 70 or 80 yards on us with your backs. So we're going to let you run up and down the field 8 or 10 plays. But then when you get into that area, all of a sudden now the box is not empty because we got the back line to stop us. Now you're going to have to be more creative. I think the creativity in the red zone specifically has to be better from a play calling standpoint. That would be my one criticism of play calling.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I mean, you're right. I mean, they're very willing to kind of bend, don't break, the opposing team is, because they think that when, you got a lot less space to cover, they're going to be able to cover it. And so Tennessee's going to have to find some different wrinkles and figure out, like, is Ethan Davis, kind of a mismatch, code breaker, so to speak, in the red zone with his athletic ability. What do some of these new receivers look like? Because I think ultimately, how they play, how the pass catchers play, and how the quarterback gets them the ball is going to dictate this thing. Because I think Peyton Lewis is going to run it with success, and I think Deshaun Bishop's going to run it with success. I don't think that part of it's changing. It'll look a little different with no Dylan Sampson, but I still think they're having success. What do the pass catchers and quarterbacks look like?
TB 7, Rob Lewis, was Zakai filing a lawsuit against the NCAA? Is this why Tennessee was holding on to another roster spot, or is it possible he's looking to go elsewhere if he's granted another year?
I don't think this is why they're necessarily holding on to a roster spot, and I could be wrong, but I think, I mean, however you talked to him as well, I think Rick is expected to have it to go up to 15 personally. So I think that's, I mean, I think they had this fifth year thing in the back of their mind, but and some speculation on my part. I mean, I think that they felt like the 15 scholarship thing would cover that. So I don't think that's why they left it necessarily why they left it open. I think they've considered the fifth year thing might be a possibility for Jourdan Gainey for sure, and maybe Zakai. Is he looking to go somewhere else? I don't think he's looking to go somewhere else, but I think Tennessee fans are naive if they don't think that somebody out there might drop a huge number on the table for him if he wins. I mean, let's see if he wins and speculation. But no, I don't think Zakai wants to go somewhere else or that's his intention. But after the craziness we just saw happen in the last 2 months in the transfer portal, the numbers thrown around. I mean, AP, we don't know if this is true, but if Rodney Rice, a guy that nobody had ever heard of 3 months ago, really did get $3 million, what's somebody going to offer Zakai?
Well, here's the thing, though, and I think this works to Tennessee's advantage. Tennessee has known that this was a possibility. They've known about this potential lawsuit for several weeks. They've known that the 5-year thing could happen, and that Zakai and Jourdan Gainey and so on and so forth would look and want to come back. So they've known this. So you can plan accordingly. None of these other schools are planning that way. I do not believe that all these other basketball programs are sitting around going, yeah, we got Scrooge McDuck diving in gold over here, and we're going to have all this available money come the summertime. So maybe one or two might.
This takes one.
But yeah, correct. It just takes one. But does that one have a offense, have personnel, have all the things that would check the box that would entice a guy like Zakai? I think Tennessee would be super competitive with an offer to the
100%. I 100% agree. 100%. And let me stress, I don't think Zakai wants to go anywhere else. That's my guess, my opinion.
I think the head coach have a hard time if he's playing somewhere else too, because of the. I mean, I understand he knows it's the business, but I think they would do a lot to try to make that work out. And I think the interesting thing is, I agree with you that it just takes one, but who's sitting around with a lot of money left over in the coffers
that has all the things that Zakai's going to need, right?
Right. Versus the schools that have money that front loaded deals for guys, through the portal or some of their signees. I don't know. It'll be interesting. So he's got to win it first. And I don't think there's any guarantee he's going to win, and they're going to make a ruling on that anytime soon. So
the time frame is obviously hugely important.
Yeah. Basically he's just trying to put pressure on them to make a decision on the 5-year thing now and not drag this thing out.
Yeah. And they can't
say no to Zakai and then do the 5-year thing a month from now and Zakai not, hammer with another one and win.
But is their answer going to be, well, we're not even addressing that till we get to the House to get the House settlement done. Now, it's not a formal part of the House settlement. They've just kind of said, we're going to go dive into that after the House settlement. But you're right. This is pressure to try to go and get that done regardless of what happens with the House settlement. All right. We got a couple more to get through here before we wrap it up. DavyVol 5, was there an assistant football or basketball coach you thought would have made a good head coach if they had gotten a chance, but they'd never got it? Guys, I went through and thought about a lot of football assistants. There's not one that jumps out to me that I would say that this guy would have been a good head coach and he never got the opportunity to be a head coach. I mean, maybe I'm missing somebody.
I did the same thing last night with it. And because I was thinking, and Hubbard, the flip side of that, there have been some guys who got head jobs and it worked out about like I thought it would.
Both good and bad, right?
Not mentioning any names.
Yeah. So I looked at this one, Austin. Nothing jumped out to me, really, football or basketball. I mean, when you think about it, nobody jumped out to me to say, man, he would have been a home run. He just didn't get a chance. I just think when you're Tennessee and you're at the status they're at, if you're a high quality assistant, you're going to get an opportunity to be a head coach if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the guys that have become head coaches the last several years. I mean, Jay Graham's a Centennial, Joe Ossovet's at Heritage, Shelton Felton's down there in South Georgia as a high school coach. I mean, I know I'm having tongue in cheek, but the point is like it's not an easy path. Now, do I think someone like Derek Ansley could be a head coach? You know, if he ever wanted to come back to college, maybe. I think Zach Azani could be a good head coach if he had come back to college. But right now, he's very content in the NFL. He's with the Steelers. He's been on you've seen him on some lists and stuff to potentially be a head coach one day in the NFL. I mean, that would be a heck of an accomplishment for Zach. So, I mean, there are guys that I think could, but just have not gotten the opportunity to this point.
And then you think about some guys who did. It was really obvious, like David Cutcliffe. Not surprising, he was a really good head coach. Justin Wilcox, not surprised. Justin Wilcox has been a long-term head coach. On the other, Steve Forbes in basketball could not be less surprised that he's been successful.
Yeah, for sure. Kay Hensley 1062. Did the ongoing construction at Lindsey Nelson impact the atmosphere and ultimately the home field advantage for this season? From TV, it seemed like there was rarely any juice in the stadium. I don't think construction had one thing to do with it. I don't think there was anything construction impacting the inside of that stadium once you went through the gate. I think it was lack of home runs at home. Weather has been awful this spring. When you think about it, I mean, it's been cold, it's been rainy, they've had odd start times. I don't think this was the best home schedule from that standpoint either, but I don't think construction had any effect on Lindsey Nelson Stadium this fall for the baseball team. ETSUVol, if ZZ does win the case, could Jacoby play the 2-guard? And would youth be a reason for the baseball team struggle this year? Let's start with Jacoby at the 2-guard.
I guess we'd find out.
I think he could. I've talked to his dad a couple of times. Like, Jacoby's known that this was a possibility, and I think would welcome the challenge. One, to compete with Zakai, but also to play alongside Zakai.
I'll say this too. I think the head basketball coach, Rob Lewis, loves him some Jacoby Gillespie. This is not a situation of, man, we got to do whatever to get Z back because we don't know what we got here. He is, if Z doesn't win, he's totally fine with Jacoby Gillespie handing him the keys to the offense.
100%. Big fan of a basketball player, maybe a bigger fan of him, person, family. So yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I think he feels like he's a great fit. AP, you think youth is a part of the baseball team struggles this year? I mean, I think there's some, I think there's some guys in some situations they haven't been in yet. So maybe you call that youth or whatever.
I'm gonna go lack of pitching.
Yeah, I mean, and whatever reason that the pitching struggles has been a big part.
I mean, like you miss Kirby and his rubber arm. They could go out there 3 straight days and give you an inning to 2 innings. I mean, all those things just snowball.
Yeah. All right. ETSU. I was going to ignore this one, but this one's going to be fun. This has nothing to do. This is not picking on anybody or anything. Favorite style of popcorn: butter, movie butter, kettle. Rob Lewis, when's the last time you ate some popcorn?
I'm trying to think. I'll tell you when it was. The hotel I stayed in Nashville had a popcorn machine at the SEC tournament in the lobby. So then, early March. But I could go to town on some movie popcorn, but it's just very rarely happens.
Agreed.
All right, I'm with movie popcorn, but I haven't been in a movie theater in probably 15 years, so I haven't had any of that either.
Flabbergasted.
Last question. We're out the gate. Flyfish 21. AP, do you think it's possible to sign a top 10 class with the new strategy of offering lower ranked kids in state? Also, does the top 10 class even matter anymore?
I don't want to say it doesn't matter because I think it does matter. Especially if you're not going to supplement with heavy in the portal. But I would tell you no. I think that to do that with the in-state kids that aren't ranked as high, you better have a handful of Tristan Keys and Savion Hyder and all those guys. So to me, and again, that's what we're talking about, right? Like boom, or kind of more developmental guys. So I think that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, and if you go that way, I'm with you. I don't think you're going to be a top 10 class. I think it's going to be really hard to be that way because you're not going to.
Do I think you have to be a top 5 class? No, because of the transfer portal.
Yeah, there you go. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Mailbag Podcast. We hope everybody has a terrific weekend, and thanks for joining us. He is Rob Lewis, Austin Price, and Brent Hubbs. We will talk to you next week on the podcast. But in the meantime, join us on the General's Quarters, subscribe to Volquest.com, and be a part of a great family. And have a great weekend, everybody.